And then there was one bus. We had a VW bus, and we had to meet at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Most of the guys in the VW bus had been out until like 2 or 3, maybe didn't sleep the night before. They usually smoked cigarettes and drank beers on the way to the game.
Hello, and welcome to the Love Soccer Podcast, where we talk about our fondness, our love for the beautiful game, all the way from youth to adulthood. I'm Jonathan Janik, and joining me today is Brendan Bartley. I've known Brendan for over 20 years. I used to play on his team. He's a soccer player. He's a soccer dad. He still is involved. Brendan, thanks for coming to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, Brendan, let's introduce you to the listeners. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you've played soccer, and what your relationship is with the game now?
Well, I'm from Maine originally. I ended up playing there and ended up playing on a state team through middle school to high school, and then went to Wake Forest, played on the club team there, tried out for the varsity team, and I've been playing on several men's teams for quite some time. We do have a nice pickup soccer email. It's probably the best email list in Milton, Massachusetts, where lots of guys play all the time on Saturdays and Sundays at this nice little field in Quincy.
I want you to close your eyes for a moment. You've had a long soccer history. And this is metaphorical. You don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to, but it's great video if you do. So close your eyes and think about the earliest moment that you remember playing soccer, the earliest time that you remember kicking a ball around. Where were you? What was the situation? Tell us.
My first memory is mostly from a soccer camp. I think it was like between my third and fourth grade is what I'm guessing. And I actually won like the most improved player. So this was the hat. I still have the hat from the soccer camp. USM Soccer School. So it was the University of Southern Maine soccer camp.
Okay. Would you say that your formidable years was from third grade through sixth grade, middle school, high school? When do you feel like you started to say, I'm an active soccer player, as opposed to I am recreationally taking part in an activity?
No, it definitely happened in middle school and high school. Certainly making the state team sort of changed things because I had extra coaching, making friends across the state and playing at a higher level. I would say when we first started out, it was apparent that we weren't the best state team by far. But we went from like getting smoked all the time by the end being like, oh, we're in games. We were winning games against other states, etc. I'd gone to Duke soccer camp a few times because I had a relative that lives near there. So that was pretty eye-opening and meeting like lots of kids from across the country and like, hey, where do you actually stack up? I was one of the better kids being like, I'm like middle of the road kind of getting. And you see like the kids but it was like big recruiting for Duke soccer camp because kids go there, coaches see them. If they liked them, they were going to Duke.
Think back to your youth. Was there a coach that influenced you in any kind of way that you said, wow, this is important to me, or taught you something that resonated, that you carried with you through your next stages?
Yeah, I mean, I think in junior high we had a pretty good coach who he would always he'd played like semi-pro. He was on one of our high school teams that was like very good. But he had us doing like this, what he called Brazilian training. From what I've seen, it seems accurate. Most of my better coaching was coming from the state team. I went to London twice on my April vacation situation. Coach Mitchell, and then actually Coach Mark Krikorian was the assistant coach for those trips. And was the long time women's coach at Florida State.
The coach that taught you the Brazilian style practice.
Yeah, Darryl Walker.
So Darryl Walker, Coach Walker, can you describe a little bit about what it meant, Brazilian style soccer? Like, what's an example of the kind of training, or if you remember a couple of examples, walk us through that.
I think the first thing we did a lap, and it would always be like we side shuffle along one side, then you side shuffle the other way, then you sprint on the short end, then you do something else a quarter of the way. And when we ran, our legs would cross over the line each time was part of it. He also set up like a slalom course with poles, bamboo poles. We had to go through that, and at the end of that, we had to jump over a cone as if we were like hitting a ball. Which I've definitely seen that for like Pele drill or way back in the '70s, which that tracks. It was mostly like getting your fitness up, um, with all this like body movement. I would say is what I equated as Brazilian training.
And then what about the other coach? There are a couple of coaches that you mentioned, including the one that was an assistant at Florida State. What did you learn from those experiences?
So it's mostly like the focus on execution. Like you need to be able to do these. So like we can all if one person messes up, then the whole thing falls apart. So you got to be able to do this and not and focus on being better. And it's what I would say I've noticed about more serious coaches.
Did you have moments of victory? Did you have memorable moments of high school soccer that speak to you? What position did you play? And did you gravitate towards something?
The highlight would probably be I think my senior year. I'd been working on crosses and hitting like a flying side volley in a game, and eventually got that opportunity, made it. And there's still this one guy that I run into 40 years later. He's like, I still remember seeing you clearly as day knocking in the super goal. I mostly played center midfield. I was the leading scorer on our team with 4 goals. Like the high school team was not good. A lot of our conference were all top A teams, and we are like four city towns melded together out in the woods playing these teams that were like everybody would have like multiple kids from those towns.
Why do you think you kept coming back to the game if it wasn't working out the way you wanted?
That's how much I wanted to play, and I knew that the more times you played is better. Essentially, is what I think. Even though it wasn't going well for me, I was like, well, I'm just gonna make the best of it. And, I mean, if I didn't play in the fall, then I wasn't gonna be playing at all. So there wasn't like a travel team or anything else. It's not like it's now. If you didn't play on your high school team, you didn't play for September, October, November. Um, so that was really my only opportunity to play for those months. And then I was basically looking forward to springtime when we were playing state.
You now go to college and you are gun ho about trying out for the team. Can you walk me through what the experience was like? And you said that you ultimately didn't make the team. Talk about the differences with the club experience because you joined the club team. So go for it.
Tryout was pretty eye opening, and I wasn't delusional about what the situation. Like I was coming from a lower level state team, where I just at least wanted to give it a shot and see what happened. But I would say it was pretty apparent pretty quickly. I got hurt early on in the process. I was actually kind of amazed at like how the training was. You're doing the shuttle run, ding ding ding, and everybody's finishing as you're like, okay, I'm not. They're in another universe. I am not getting there. And then I just played club. So I remember we had one big turn. We had one tournament at Appalachian State, and it was one of the wildest games I've ever played in because we're playing on turf. It snows. Then after it snows, the sun comes out, and we're playing on this turf field with snow and the sun. It's like blinding as all get out. Everybody's sliding everywhere. No one can really do anything. For some people, I'm pretty sure it was like the first time they ever saw snow. And they're just like, what in the world is we doing out here? But it was a lot of fun. And one of my more memorable games playing club soccer.
Let's talk about Florida. It sounds like that was post college.
I was at grad school for PT school. I was coaching a youth team at the same time I was doing this and ran into these guys. And so I got on this team, and the league was up in St. August, in Jacksonville, and we were in St. Augustine. There actually was a kid from Maine who was few years behind me who was a big soccer player as well. He was going to the same school as I was. And we had this guy who was like 45 years old, so I was only like 23 or something like that. And we had this 45, looked like Chuck Norris. We all called him Chuck Norris. he would sit in my car. I had like a black Saab, and he would just cruise. We'd be cruising down Route One. That was one car with like those three players, and then I had my mixtape before all our games, and it had all my rap music, what he was not into. But like as he rode in our car each time, he'd be like, "Raise the roof," and all this stuff. It was hilarious. He got really into it. He got really into Beastie Boys. He like, oh, nice, dude. We had one guy. One guy was Pakistani, I want to say, and he had a car. And then there was this one bus. We had a VW bus, which had mostly like Flagler colleges in St. Augustine, so they had a pretty good. I think they had a fairly good soccer team from guys I played with. So there was a lot of guys from that team. The games were usually like at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we had to meet at like 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30. Most of the guys in the VW bus had been out until like 2 or 3, maybe didn't sleep the night before. The VW bus was cleaned out. They had lawn chairs. They usually smoked cigarettes and drank beers on the way to the game. Came out of the came out of the van just like stumbling all over the place. Stuff is everywhere. They would take the box that they were drinking the beers out of and break it up and use those as their shin guards. And then the best, most memorable game was we were a very good team. So like there was one guy who was like a very good striker, Jean Paul, who played but like towards the end of the season he was like always disappearing. I was like, oh, dude, we could win this if you stuck around. But and I like we had all the pieces on one team, and I was like one side super fast playing outside midi. I would just, and at the time I was like in super, I would just run all day. And if they got behind me, there was a thug behind me. So it was like, do you want to get chased around or do you want to get slammed to the ground? I remember like in some games, the keeper would look at like my side. I was like, "Oh, please throw it here." Like, no, I don't want it. When the other guy was like this Irish guy who just like learned how to play soccer and then got really good like really quick. But anyways, this one day we play against like this Bible banging team. They looked at all that van emptying out and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna dust these guys. Like these guys, they're terrible." These guys can't even get to the field barely. They're drunk. They're smoking their cigarettes all the way. They took the car. No, no way. Literally, uh, in the first maybe 5 minutes, we score 2 goals. And as we're coming back the second time, only myself, the other outside midi, and the two forwards had touched the ball. The two center midfielders coming back, they're like, "Wait, have you touched the ball? I haven't touched the ball. Have you touched? Who's? How did we score 2 goals with like we haven't touched the ball?" And like that like encapsulates the team that we had I was playing on at the time. It was just like most of the guys showed up. I don't think we only have like one or two subs every single game. We typically had pretty good forwards that would run up and down. We had Thug Life in the back for the most part. Some English guys. There was a lot of English influence for Flagler College and a lot of those guys and Irish. But I mean, we had a lot of fun, and it was just I wasn't like really into the partying scene at all. And these guys, I was just like, wait, you did what? They're like, we didn't go to sleep last night. I was like, what? And how do you play so well at 8 o'clock in the morning? Like, I can't even imagine what. Like, most of them worked at like a restaurant, like on the ocean or whatever. They were working at the bar, then had to clean up and all that kind of stuff, and then they have the after party after whatever, and be like. So sometimes it was some mornings we're like, guys, where are you? Like, you're 8 guys of the team. Like, you're basically a team. If the van doesn't go, we don't have a team. They're like, yeah, we're getting there. All right, well, we're there.
It's good stuff. That is good stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty fantastic. It was definitely one of the more definitely a very fun team and like it was hilarious with the Chuck Norris guy, and it was just hilarious because he was 20 years older than everybody,
Yeah.
and still he would move very slowly. We usually play him like a defensive midfielder, so like there was coverage for him, but he would tackle so hard and just be like, ah, wasn't it like whatever, he was
I'm sorry.
smashing people, and he'd be like, oh, sorry, sorry. And the rest of us would be like, oh my gosh, he totally meant to kill that guy, and the referee would just like be convinced that he wasn't, and he was just like, oh well, he's 45, like such an older. I'm like, okay, buddy, he totally meant to smash that guy. And he had like his own business. He was like basically he was running like rentals, and he was this big, strong dude. Had played in college, so like he was definitely a super old school of like you put in a tackle, you're like making sure the guy doesn't get out.
Right. How about Georgia or Atlanta? What was your playing experience life in Georgia?
I will say the one thing playing in Atlanta and playing in the South, one thing I always remember is how often I would be done and as if you went swimming. It's so hot and humid. It's as if you're just decked out in like super sweat everywhere. I was playing pickup in Emory had some fields, and I live right near Emory. I ended up playing like on a men's team for a little bit, but again, I was sort of the odd man out. And as you had mentioned, I was a littler guy, but tackled pretty hard. And when you're the new guy, some people are not so fond of that. But I feel like in Atlanta is more that you end up showing up and somebody's like the king of the hill and they're used to being king of the hill and you're like, no, not anymore, bud. There's a new guy in town. I was definitely going to make people's lives a little more difficult than it had been in the past. I always felt like sort of an outsider there to some extent, even though and I was only there for like a year and a half. I would say in Boston, switching from Atlanta, but people were always like, Brendan, how do you know some more people? I was like, it's just simple math. If you're on an 11 by 11 team, you know essentially 25 people. If you're on an indoor team, there's 15 people. Now you have some overlap, but like early on when I first got to Boston, I was probably playing on 4 or 5 teams. I was playing like 4 or 5 times a week. It's just math. Like they
When we met in Massachusetts, I don't think our first meeting was even on the soccer field. I think it was at one of your anniversary parties that other soccer players that I knew went to, and they're like, "Oh, you want to come to one of these parties?" You always used
the
it as a
Benda in
charity.
December.
Yeah, spend it in December. Yeah, and um, we eventually were sometimes on the same teams. I don't know if we ever played against each other unless that was like pickup. Um,
In the men's league, I think you are on a different team
yeah, different
because
league
you
too,
were
different
you were a
division.
manager of a different team.
Yeah, but occasionally I jumped in on your games in indoor, either in Acton or Canton, maybe an occasional outdoor through BSSC, maybe. It's hard to remember that. But
The
man,
SSC was definitely a lot more fluid.
yeah, but I had the same experience. When I came to Massachusetts, the first thing, like I came from LA. So I refound my love for the game in LA, and I realized like this is meaningful to me. This is what I need. And when I moved to Massachusetts, like the first goal, even though I had friends there, they weren't soccer players. Even though I had friends there, like my first goal was to find a soccer league, and I found Boston Ski and Sports Club. And from there, it's similar to your experience where it's like all of a sudden, if you are competent, you're being asked to play on another team, and then you're going to be asked to play on another league, and you're going to be asked again and again, and it just the network, it's like this spider web effect. It just grows so quickly in Massachusetts, and I credit soccer to my success in Massachusetts, to be honest. What did soccer do for you in Massachusetts and these other places?
I already had a friend when I moved to the Boston area who was on a men's team. So I already had that hookup and I was definitely like, oh, this is much better. But at one point, I think it was the Euros because the Euros aren't on TV. I went to a bar to go find to watch a Euros game, and eventually, like some people are have English accents, and I'm like, oh, where are you guys? Are you going to the game by any chance? They were like, yes, we are. So I hung out with them, and that's how I got on my first indoor team here in Boston. Is I just randomly met up as we were going to go watch the Euros, and they're like, "Do you play soccer?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right." I will say Boston is like much different than everywhere else. there's just like so many leagues, so many opportunities to play soccer. There, like I think it has for over the Hill League, it's the biggest league in the country, or at least east of the Mississippi.
Let's pretend someone is building a team and you need to apply to this team. What would you put on your soccer resume for your age group, for your peer setting now?
I was a wing midfielder or a defensive player, but can play any position. I will play, including goalie. Um, don't really care where I play as long as I'm playing, and I will play in the position that gives us the best chance to win. And so that typically means you're playing defense, and that's fine with me. But just realize I'm probably moving forward from the defense position as often as possible.
Spoken like every attack minded person who's been forced to play defense. I'll be there in the attacking third.
If I feel like I have wind enough and there's space, I'm going.
I love it. I want you to think about the Brendan Bartley Hall of Fame. You can nominate a few people to the Brendan Bartley Hall of Fame. These are people that you personally have known over your soccer journey, people who have influenced you, that have played some kind of important role in your soccer journey. Who are some of the names and why?
In terms of like influencing early on, like there would probably not be a program at my high school in that area without Jake LaFerrier, who at the time was the high school coach. And I'm pretty sure sort of started youth soccer in our area. Without him, and he's the high school coach my freshman year that had passed away because of cancer. I think without that, like even being there, then I don't necessarily get signed up or anything like that at all. And then I would say we talked about Daryl Walker, who showed me like Brazilian soccer. Like this is what more serious soccer looks like in my junior high years. He was one of the coaches for the trips to Nova Scotia. So, and I actually have one that may not, it's not really a person. My mom got me a subscription to Soccer America, and I read it voraciously, and that is how I got like 88 Netherlands. Like I became a Netherlands fan and AC Milan fan because of Soccer America. Like I couldn't watch any of the games. I would just read about it and picture them, and because of that, I was able to like follow those leagues through Soccer America, which were like 2 weeks later. To the fact that like even I got to college and they had Italian newspapers, I would read them in. I would try and read the about the games because again, I got to college when these games weren't on all the time. Even like there's so much soccer on nowadays. Back then it was like you're searching everywhere to get any sort of information whatsoever about anything. So even if it's 2 weeks old.
So true.
Yeah. So I would say Soccer America to some extent, even though it's not a person, it's just that was like how I got introduced to a lot of like the what was out there and how and who these players were in a lot of ways.
If you were to describe, if you were to, if you were to describe your soccer philosophy as a player, as a coach, what would be some of the important themes in that philosophy?
Well, luckily that's easy. I Because I was a big fan of the Dutch, I am a total believer in the total football. Yeah, I think that ideally you shouldn't need positions for your players. They should all know like when they're just a starting point that I often when coaching, I'm like, yeah, if you as long as you run back to get back to where you need to be, go ahead and go forward. Or get some if you can get somebody else to take cover for you because you went up. Yeah, let's go. Everybody attacks, everybody defends. Everybody figures it out. Like if you're playing with people that are good, you don't necessarily have like you'll see people all over the field. They just know, like, I go into space. I find the space, I go to the space, and then you get the ball. And with people who are smart, that's all you have to do. So that is definitely, and also, I would say that, and you have to be tough. Um, I, oftentimes, I mean, actually, like you were talking about my tackle, like I was 5'7", 150. I was not the biggest guy on my team, but when anything went off on the team, I'm the guy that's like I was the enforcer on our team most of the time, and I was not the biggest guy. So maybe the chapter is the underdog enforcer. Could be the name of the chapter to some extent. But I mean, even like I'd be, there was always something happening when I was on around me, no matter what. And if like, I will say, and oftentimes I've been on teams where like you knew somebody was a hothead, and I'd always be like, we need this guy to be. I tell people who are closer to him, like, wrap him up. We need him to stay on the field. And people would just be like, no, we're just gonna let him go. And I'd be like, no, launch onto him. Be like, we need the dude, get out of here. I will take care of this. Like, get out. No, never get out. So, yeah,
It sounds
I
like
mean,
you're the parent in the room.
yeah, essentially, I'm like, I like to. What I had one buddy. He was always like, he always did the wild things, but he was the parent of the wild things in his group. So I definitely feel somewhat to that. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm fine with like you get the yahoos are gonna yahoo, and I'm like, all right, but we're gonna bring you back here. All right, we're gonna need you for this, or um. So yeah, I think that's probably hopefully some answers your questions.
So, uh, Brendan, we're writing a chapter on your soccer journey. What would we call your chapter in the book, and why?
Yeah, I mean the unknown underdog enforcer party. And the reason why I say that now is like, I was always the new guy showing up, not knowing it. Even I mentioned it for state team. When I go to Atlanta, I don't know anybody when I show up. Like I'm going in cold. I go in cold for indoor soccer team here. I've gone in cold a bunch. I'm actually the only walk on in my basketball league who we like didn't know anybody, just walked in the door like, can I play? Um, and I think I go from the unknown underdog, like, oh wait, this guy's actually pretty good. Oh, actually, we're gonna have this guy be the enforcer on our team, even though it was always a relief if I found a bigger guy who was willing to be the enforcer. I was like, oh sweet, I don't have to be that guy. But if you don't have that guy on your team, like you're just gonna get count, you're gonna get killed. So somebody has to do it. And I was like, again, it's sort of how we go back to like, I'll play whatever position you need me to play. If I'm not really the guy that should be the enforcer, and you need one, I will be that guy. And then the party, I would say, because like you're sort of saying, out of all this communities, like we met at the Bender in December, and like the whole thing was like, how do you know so many people? And I can remember like going out so many times, like, do you guys only play soccer? I mean, just talk about soccer? Yeah, that's all we talk about. Like, we go out all the time, and we party all the time, and we talk about soccer all the time.
Full stop.
That's it.
Full stop. There's nothing outside the ball.
What are you
What
guys
do you
talking
mean?
about? Like, how many leagues are there? People will be like, does the season ever stop? No. There's like, how many teams? They're on a club team and they have a national team. And you're like, it's always good with like the World Cup where like the people who don't necessarily know everything, and you're like, oh, I can tell you all about this, and blah 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 blah.
Well, Brendan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's great talking to you. It's great catching up. And to all our listeners out there, do what you do on social, share, like, comment, and until next time, take care.
Thanks for having me.